What is your toxic family or relationship story? Why should I apologize? So this came up at a recent family gathering and I'm curious about the prevailing opinion. My sister-in-law does not like me. She's never liked me, and she made things hell from the time my husband proposed. She has three main reasons for disliking me. I embarrass her brother. Well, if that was true, that needs to come from him. I'm not good enough for her family, and he cheated on his fiancée with me. She has the timeline all warped and we are both still friends with the ex-fiancé. She was actually at the wedding. She spread a lot of rumors while we were planning the wedding and tried to poison my relationship with my mother-in-law. Post-wedding, she's accused me of cheating, claims our son doesn't look like my husband, and she used to drive by while my husband was at work to look for strange cars. The only reason she wasn't cut off was because it would have hurt her mother, who recently passed away, and all of this drama resurfaced. My sister-in-law was upset that I received a family heirloom in the will. It wasn't given to my husband to give to me, but my mother-in-law mentioned me directly by name. We had our first family dinner since her passing, and my other sister-in-law, married into the family, not their sibling if that matters, tried to heal things between the two of us. I was willing to be forgiving, because I know she was hurt by the will. When my husband and I married, and I realized this is horribly immature, he fed me the cake very sweetly and then his friends were cheering for me to smash it. Well, he didn't do anything to deserve that, so I turned around and smeared some on the sister. I still maintain it was a little funny, but yes, ridiculous and immature. I asked if she was going to apologize for everything she's done and said over the years, and she said I can't turn it around when she asked first. We left shortly after and my husband is adamant that I do not apologize. If she had wanted to put all of the past behind us, I might have agreed, but I would much rather have some cake smeared on me than be known as the town floozy because of some lies. So am I wrong for refusing to apologize? My girlfriend thinks she's cheating on me, and now she needs space. My girlfriend just told me she needed space after telling me 2 weeks ago that she thinks she's cheating on me. For starters, we have seen each for more than 3 months now due to the pandemic. She's a frontline worker and I work from home. We've had a few arguments during that time, mostly caused by stress due to work and the way the pandemic is being handled poorly in our country. 2 weeks ago though, I woke up to a call from her saying that she thinks she's cheating on me, as she has started talking to an ex-fling of hers for a few days now. I simply told her that I trust her. She replied that she would stop talking to the guy, but had to remark that I need to mark my territory. I simply told her that I don't own her to mark her. Now, she has just told me she needs space. Granted, we had an argument last Tuesday. I was really busy with work and house chores that I was not able to talk to her during the day, though I informed her beforehand that I will be busy for the day. I did try to contact her after I was done with everything, but she was saying that I was not even asking how she was. This went on for the following days where I am busy with work and house chores, though I do chat her to check up on her if she's cooled down already, with which she would say no, but then say that I still need to chat/talk to her, and now she just told me she needed space. I tried asking her what the problem is and such, but she simply said that she needs time and space. I had no choice but to just agree, and just told her to just contact me if she's okay already. But now, after I've processed everything, I am uneasy. Are we breaking up or on the verge of breaking up? Is the ex-fling an issue? It's not helping that I search what I need space meant and internet says that it's just another way of beating around the bush to break up. I've already talked to 2 close friends of mine, and the consensus was, I don't deserve to be treated this way, but I am still hopeful that there's some light here. Would greatly appreciate your inputs. Additional info: we've been dating for more than 2 years now, exclusively for 1.5 years. Before the pandemic, she stays at my house during weekends. Just 1 more year and a half. My experience with my toxic mom. I have about a year and a half left of this crap before I finish school and ideally peace the F out of my town. Here is all the fun stuff I've had to deal with leading up to this point. I want to be comprehensive and clear, but I also just need to rant. Thank you so much to anyone who listens to this long story. Starting from the beginning, I have 2 older brothers. One is special needs, autistic, nonverbal, and the other has autism to a lesser degree. My parents and I never clashed when I was a kid over anything more major than being made to eat foods I don't like. And you know, my older brother would bully me relentlessly emotionally and physically. I was a small kid and he was 4 years older, so basically I was screwed. And my parents did nothing about it because you know we're siblings and it's normal. Both my parents were the oldest sibling. Other than a sprinkling of obvious favoritism towards my eldest brother because he could do no wrong, nothing really went wrong until high school rolled around and you know, I started to become an independent human being. The first thing was mildly lousy for my 12-year-old self because well, 12-year-olds are insecure and want to blend in, And that's how my parents love to make me look extremely. My parents are Christian and don't like spending money. I had a brick phone in 2016 because I couldn't be trusted with the internet. I had the knee-length shorts, I had the flared non-brand track pants, and you freaking know I had the jumper in the school colors. But not the actual school jumper because we have 2 other kids and we don't want to buy this child the school jumper like the others because we don't feel like it. My parents are by no means struggling financially, they never have been, they're just selectively extremely stingy, but I could never ask them for something so insane such as decent clothes because I would be a spoiled brat. My parents love calling me that. And paying $35 for a nice pair of pants for school is insane when you can spend $35 a year replacing school shorts that wear holes in the ass from sitting on concrete. I mean, it didn't matter much anyway because I never went out anywhere because A, I had no friends, and B, I didn't go anywhere because my mom would come along and follow. One time I spent maybe 15 minutes walking around a market with friends while my mom was somewhere else. I had 10 missed phone calls. I wasn't in line of sight, but I literally was less than 20 meters away. Also, she had a rule that made going out with friends impossible: don't leave the building. If I went to the cinema, I would only be allowed to be with friends at the cinema. No going to McDonald's afterwards or going over to their house or anything. If there was a trace of evidence that my friends and I hadn't stayed at the place she dropped me off the entire time, I would be in huge trouble. That sucked. But that was the worst of it for a few years. I got an iPhone 4 eventually. It barely stayed on for longer than 20 minutes between charges. But my god, I love that thing. I did begin to struggle with my mental health, and that was only noticed when suddenly I was behind on schoolwork and was no longer the genius they thought I was. I was in gifted selective classes throughout high school. It was pretty much the only thing my mom had to brag about, her ugly and antisocial 13-year-old that, while being raised strictly Christian, dressed like a baby lesbian. I was forced to go to the school counselor, and I have great memories of spending 6 hours a day in school holidays doing schoolwork. I was too depressed to complete normally at the kitchen table. I did this every term that year rather than maybe my parents wondering why is she doing this. This was very superficial for the upcoming crapstorm that was when I was 14 and decided to get a job at McDonald's. I was really not cut out for a job, I just felt like I should do that because I'm old enough now. That was a terrible idea because I despised my job. The managers were wankers, the hours sucked, I had no friends, and the best part, I didn't even have a freaking debit card set up. I worked at that crap hole for 6 months and I never spent any of the money I earned because I physically couldn't. Inevitably, after not long being there, I developed horrible anxiety about it. I would count down the days, then hours, then minutes until my next shift. I would be filled with dread. I secretly called in sick when I couldn't bear the thought of going there. I cried in the car park, a lot. My mom gave me some lovely advice during these car crying sessions. Stop crying, you have to go. You have no choice. Fake a smile. Now and go in there, you were supposed to be the easy and normal child. I would cry and beg for her to let me quit, and she didn't give a single crap. You may think now, reader, why didn't you just quit behind her back? And while I had become a very good liar, I had been conditioned to the point where I couldn't do anything without asking permission, which is also why I never went out with friends, because the process of always asking permission was frankly exhausting when combined with everything else. I did get an out from that hellhole though. At the end of 2018 I started applying for jobs, and on my 15th birthday I had a shift at McDonald's, got told I was a terrible child by my mother, and got a debit card. I got another job at place similar to Starbucks, and it was fine for a few months, until guess what? Turns out when you don't treat anxiety it comes back, and even worse than before. I spent every moment thinking and dreading work. Just like at McDonald's, I told my friends about these feelings of dread and ultimately, a feeling that I was trapped. I couldn't leave because I didn't know what my mother would do. But it wouldn't be good, that's for sure. It was sad to realize that while my friends are great and supportive, there was nothing anyone could do. I started expressing my anxiety to my mom again and crying in the car again. And she then told me another sentence I won't soon forget: I can't deal with you anymore. Do you want to go to child and adolescent mental health services or a Headspace? Again, lovely to hear that she couldn't deal with her child having emotions. I chose child and adolescent mental health services, and it was frankly, freaking awful. The therapist was in the same building as my mom's work, and she seemed to immediately take my being there not as this child has severe anxiety about work, but as her mother forcing her to go, and instead the therapist took the route of, we have to tell this child she has to keep going to work because she has no choice otherwise, and in the first session force her to write a page on how great her job is. I understandably lashed out at this lady's refusal to actually listen to me, and my sessions were then cut in half. I quit my job without telling my mother after almost a year of working there. She found out through one of her church friends who ratted me out. I was grounded for the rest of the year, which meant nothing. It was November and also I never go out. She had worn me down over the years and I hadn't bothered trying anymore. It sent me into a depressive spiral for a few months, realizing I had no control in my life, that I wasn't a recluse by choice, but over the years it was just easier to never leave the house. That has always been a theme, just doing whatever is easier than dealing with the mother, becoming a recluse, wearing the awful clothes she bought me, never speaking up, lying about schoolwork, and never complaining. If I ever complained about something, she would email the school and harass the teachers. If I were to tell her something, I would keep telling her don't call the school throughout the story, because having a Karen for a mother is above all really embarrassing. The next bad thing was that it was now the end of year 10, and in Australia that means subject selections. It meant subject selections for year 11 and 12, where everything actually matters a lot more because certain subjects at certain ranks are prerequisites for uni courses, and also if you do bad in one subject you hate/suck at, it drives down your ranking, making it harder to get into uni. I've had my mind on uni for years now. Once upon a time I was overly honest and told the mother directly when I finish high school I'm moving out and going to a university in Sydney. She laughed at this, but I wasn't joking. My oldest brother had already pieced the F out. He got a girlfriend and one day took a backpack to her house and never came back. He didn't go NC and we still see him a lot. But my god, he is 2,000 times happier away from this house. We actually get along okay now. The problem is that now all the wrath of my Karen mother was directed onto me. But anyway, back on topic, did I mention that she over several weeks slowly forced me to do all the subjects she wanted for me instead of what I actually wanted to do? I would tell her the subjects I wanted and I would be ripped to shreds about how wrong I was. I essentially had no choice. She forced me to do 13 units of literally all of, but one, thank F I'm not doing extension maths, of the hardest HSC courses there are. She looked over my shoulder as I loaded the subject selection website and ticked every course she wanted for me. I started year 11 already somewhat demoralized. I now had to keep doing my selective classes which were online, but now instead of 3 subjects it was for 5, and instead of starting school at 9, I started at 7:30 a.m. in the school library, alone. I saw my friends once per day at lunch because I spent all my time in the library for online classes. I hated physics and there is a several-week-long window where you can change out of subjects you hate at the start of the year. But as you may have guessed, the mother doesn't care about what I want. She cares about control. She cares about having me do whatever she wants for me. Because without physics, how was I supposed to become a medical scientist? I don't want to be a medical scientist. Then the pandemic happened, and it was a wild mixture between having the time of my life and being so depressed I couldn't get out of bed. I started skipping my online classes by leaving halfway through, and I was caught and yelled at. I fell behind on work and I was yelled at. I missed one class and I was yelled at. There's always been lots of yelling from her. It's either that or her ugly ass face scrunches up to glare while telling me about how much of a disappointment I am. Restrictions are for the most part lifting in Australia. I have been not enjoying, but coping with school. Winter has rolled around and I have to buy the senior school jumper myself because you'll only wear it for 2 years, which actually means, I don't consider you worth spending $50 on. I got my half-year report recently and was pretty hurt by my class ranks. Today I received an email with my mother CC'd in from a teacher about how I missed a tutorial. I legitimately forgot. The mother spent a while after seeing that email yelling at me about being a disappointment and an embarrassment and all that jazz, and something funny happened. I felt absolutely nothing. I seriously couldn't care anymore. I just zoned out and thought about my escape from this hellhole. She took my phone and I couldn't care anymore. A few hours later she saw me on my laptop and she did her little freaking witch cackle. She sounds like a witch. When I told her TikTok doesn't work on laptops, she was also acting all buddy-buddy with me like she always does. Because that way if I stay angry at her she can throw a toddler-like tantrum about me being a bitch and being angry for not forgiving her immediately. My mom throws a lot of tantrums. Example, every time I walk past her sitting in the lounge room on Farmville I have to hug her, otherwise she has a meltdown. I have to sit in her lap for this despite being 16. I freaking hate it because I freaking hate her and I freaking hate hugs. If I don't want to make her a cup of tea at the drop of a hat, tantrum. If I ever be indecisive, tantrum, which I am chronically because making a decision in front of her is a one-way ticket to a tantrum because I didn't choose what she wanted me to pick. These tantrums involve a mixture of yelling, acting like a literal toddler, and calling me an ungrateful bitch, often followed 10 minutes later by her yelling at my dad. My dad is deaf and if he doesn't understand her after 2 attempts she just starts yelling. I just want to escape. I've been counting down the years for way too long. I hate it here. The mother is a freaking bitch, and my dad isn't just no, but he is incredibly irritating and straight up childish, as in I will be fully ready to beat the crap out of this old man in pure rage and he will still make jokes like a 6-year-old and make fun of me and wave his arms around, whilst also managing to be a strict Christian who often says stuff that is quite racist/homophobic. Today he compared the Black Lives Matter movement to, you guessed it, The Nazis. He compared the protesters' air punch to the freaking Nazi salute. The man is batcrap insane. Also, I am a bisexual and I intend on coming out to my parents precisely never. My current plan is to get a car, get into uni, get the F out. I don't care if during holidays I will need to live in that car I get because I will not spend time back here as much as I can help it. I have my few freedoms, and I use them to hold out a tiny bit of hope for this. I have internet access, I have friends, I have a phone, and I've bought my own clothes. I have left a few gaps in this story as to certain events, but at this point I think I've vented enough for tonight about this crap show. TLDR, I freaking hate my life and I'm waiting to be 1,200 kilometers away so I can either live a real life or freaking kill myself. If you've read this far, thank you. But also, like, Jesus Christ, that's some insane perseverance. Is it wrong to elope? I got married almost 3.5 years ago. Me, 29M. My wife, Lauren, 26F. Old friend, Kane, 31M. So my wife and I actually got married in December 2016, so this situation is really freaking bizarre. An old friend of mine recently got in touch with me after we lost contact many years ago and he saw that I'm married. I didn't tell him this because we weren't talking at the time and he got really offended that he wasn't invited to my wedding. I told him that there wasn't a wedding. My wife and I were only engaged for 6 months and took our daughter, who was 6 months old at that time, and eloped. The only people there were us, our kid, and our witnesses were the registry office people. We literally got married on our own terms as we didn't want a huge reception. Kane has used the argument that we used to be really close and that I'm a dick for not considering him as a witness even though joke of my family or friends or Lauren's were there. He also said we're a-holes for just eloping, meaning our marriage must be crap. He then brought my now 3-year-old daughter into this and I swiftly blocked him. I've recently brought up this bizarre exchange with my mom and she thinks that Lauren and I should have had a proper wedding instead of the registry office reception with our daughter that we wanted. A few others have agreed with her, but Lauren says they're idiots for dictating what they think a real wedding is and her family and our friends are on our side. Who is wrong here? My soon-to-be ex-wife is going to continue a relationship with my parents after we separate. I can't deal with this. How do I navigate out of this situation? Basically, we both had sex with other people on a break, and she got knocked up with another man's child. Despite always being child-free, she decided she wants to keep it, so we're divorcing. Now the plan was that she was going to live with a half-sister until she gets sorted, but said sister resides further away from us. So we've had a fair few problems. Suffice to say, our relationship is really deteriorating. Yesterday, I noticed she's got her suitcases out and she's packing. I was really happy. I thought her sister came through for her. She says my parents have suggested to her they want her to live with them until she can get things sorted and they want to help her with her pregnancy. Now they know it's not my kid and I'm not helping her raise it. So I ring them up and confront them. Basically, my mom says to them, the ex is like the daughter she's never had and has been in their life for the best part of 15 years. My ex is wanting to keep my name as it's not looking like she's going to be in a relationship with the baby daddy, and she doesn't want to go back to her maiden name as she's estranged from her family and has no attachment from the name. My dad then comes on the call. Basically, my dad's Mr. Placid, never says boo to a goose, and if my mom says jump, he says how high. He says this kid is going to be like family to them and they're going to be the grandparents it needs. I'm freaking fuming. I just hung up and haven't spoken to anyone since. I can't believe it. What can I do? Their mind is dead set. I feel like I'm in a rut. I'm tempted to just take off and leave it all behind. Even change my own name? DLDR, X is staying in my parents' life and they're helping her raise her bastard kid. Can I do anything? My family can't see my sister's flaws because she's famous, but she's a complete bitch. So my sister used to be a really fun person to be around. Going on around 5 to 6 years ago. She was usually pretty happy, hung out with quite a few people, and had a certain gravity. Then she started YouTube. As it goes for most people, she wasn't an instant success. She had to work hard for her subs, but over time things got better. She started to gain momentum. While she was doing YouTube, she started dating an awesome guy. Really chill, down-to-earth kind of dude. They made a good pair. However, as the relationship got more serious and her YouTube career started taking off, she became a manipulative, narcissistic liar. I didn't see her much anymore. She would barricade herself in her room every day. It got to a point where I asked a few times a week if she had moved out, and I was too distracted to notice. She put her view count and like/dislike ratio above everything else. For a while, I supported her, but as she started becoming fame-hungry, we lost touch. Shortly after, she got married to said boyfriend. From what I've seen, she treats him more like property than a person, a means to an end. One time we had a family dinner and she said, with her now husband sitting right next to her, that she only has sex with him for the kids. That she doesn't like it. Here's where the problems come in. She had a lot of firsts with the family. First to move out. First to get married. First to have kids. My family has a habit of rating people based on the efficiency, not who they are. It's a screwed up system. Basically, I have no kids, but I'm married. I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. Whenever I bring up how my sister blatantly disregards anyone and everyone who doesn't have the same opinions, or spits stupid crap about really sensitive topics, they brush it off and, 9 times out of 10, agree with her, even if before, they had a different opinion. Also, she spread a crap ton of rumors about my wife being a promiscuous lady, and that she doesn't want my wife around her kids because she thinks that my wife is a bad influence, even though my sister made everything up. There's a bunch of other stuff that I could write out, but it would be a really long post. Looking for advice or how other people in a similar situation have handled it? My dad had an affair with my now stepmom. Is it wrong that I dumped water on her? I'm a 19-year-old girl and my parents divorced 4 years ago when my dad came home in the middle of the night, woke my mother up, and told her that he never loved her. He had been having an affair with some girl, we'll call her Tiffany, who he met at work. Tiffany was 28 at the time and he was 41. He didn't want us to know right away, but the fighting woke me and my brother up, and my dad pretty much told us that he'd been wasting his life with our mom. He almost cried, but I just really hated him in that moment. He married Tiffany about 2 years later and she had twin girls. I didn't want to go for every other weekend visits and he thought I was too old to force me. He'd take me out to dinner and invite me to the house and stuff, but I never spent the night. This put a real strain on our relationship and recently he's been open about missing me and wanting me to know my 2 little sisters. My brother and Tiffany get along great. He does 50-50. But when the pandemic got bad and he had to pick, he chose to stay with my dad and Tiffany. I resent everyone, even my brother, for how much they've hurt my mom. My dad convinced me to spend the weekend with him though I was apprehensive. Tiffany was nice for the first day, like really overeager nice, but when I didn't respond she got sort of cold and passive-aggressive. Growing up my dad was this really old-fashioned man's man who never showed any emotion, but now he's always all over Tiffany. I think it's really weird to grab your wife's butt in front of your kids, but it's not an easy thing to bring up. The other night my dad grilled and we all ate outside. The babies were in their little pool, my dad and brother had been swimming, and my brother had even sucked water up in one of those noodle things and squirted Tiffany at one point. My point is no one was dressed up and she didn't mind getting wet. Well, they were kissing, like they always do, like making out. I know Tiffany knows how much it bothers me and at one point she even looked right at me. So I filled up one of the baby's plastic buckets with water and tossed it at them to cool them off. I get this wasn't the most mature thing, but she's always bragging about how she's the fun parent and she has so much fun with my brother, and I know if he did it it would have just been considered a prank. But I guess Tiffany cried afterwards and now my dad is pissed. Am I in the wrong? Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.